everybody. Bishop Lisa Weah here. I have my bestie on with me tonight, Chana Johnson, and we are going to have a very engaging dialogue tonight. It is Thanksgiving Eve, and I asked her to hop on with me tonight because I like to talk about practical things as well as applying the Word of God to the things that we're going through. So we're going to take a little divergence tonight from our discussion on a deeper dive into discipleship and actually look at something very relevant to today, to this season. And it actually is a component of our discipleship, remaining steadfast, remaining graceful and powerful and Christ-like, even when we're in difficult seasons. And so go round up, lottie-dottie, everybody. Get your mother, your father, sister, brother, children, aunts, uncles. Text your friends and your enemies. Let them know they need to get on tonight. The MBBC Baltimore. We are on live for the next several moments. We will be on tomorrow at 10 for our Thanksgiving Day worship, virtual only. Do not come to Cary Street because we will all be home cooking. We are going to get online together and make sure we shout out everybody. I know some of y'all are probably cooking tonight because both of us just stepped away from our stove so we could come and have this chat for everybody to listen in on tonight. But I was just sharing that, this is a first holiday for me. I'm in a year of first. And so, holiday grief, holiday blues that people get, whether they're grieving or not, winter blues, which many of us get just from the weather changing, the days are shorter. We've gone into a season now where days get dark really, really fast. So there are a lot of things that can converge on us, especially during this time of the year. And we can be overwhelmed and not even realize it. And so that's what we're going to dive into tonight. Hey, Elder Nazell, good to see you on tonight. Happy Thanksgiving. Sister Rena, good evening to you. Y'all get on here and shout out where you are. Just say hey so we'll know who's on. And if you have any specific, Sister Laurie, good evening to you. And y'all let us know where you are tonight. Are you on the road? Are you traveling somewhere for dinner? Are you staying home? Are you cooking? Elder Harvey is on. I know he's cooking tomorrow. Yes, I know. And I hope some is being set aside for your pastor. Bless you, sir. So let's pray and we're going to dive into tonight's conversation. Father, we thank you for this pause as we prepare for the holiday on tomorrow, God, a day where we just pause and say thank you. Lord, we thank you every day, but we thank you for special seasons where we may indeed exalt you and lift you up and let others know just how good you've been to us, God. If we tried to count our blessings, we could not. So we just say thank you. God, be in the midst of this time of sharing tonight. God, we thank you for the wisdom that shall be imparted on tonight, for the knowledge and understanding we shall gain, that we might be made better and that we might bring you greater glory, even in seasons such as this. Have your way in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Oh, okay. Elder Nazell is in DC for the holiday. Bless you, sir. All righty. So, wait a minute. We have confirmation from Elder Harvey. It is written that he is going to put aside some for me. Minister Kelly is in the kitchen. When you say I'm in the kitchen, that means you are a real cook. That means you are throwing down tonight. Sister Laurie is home and cooking for tomorrow. All right. So y'all keep this on, but keep an eye on your food as well so you don't burn anything. So 3rd John verse 2 is one of my favorite verses about wellness. And it says, "Dear friend, I pray that you may enjoy good health and that all may go well with you, even as your soul is getting along well." And I really believe that this is a strong, strong biblical foundation, that it's, of course, imperative that we feed our spirits. It's imperative that we take care of our bodies. But what we really don't give as much attention to is our soul, where our heart, our emotions, our will. And when any one part of us is out of sync, the rest of us is out of sync as well. And we don't realize the symptoms of a soul problem often until we have sunk pretty far into it. And so I'm grateful to have Chana on tonight, and she's going to tell you her business name and her credentials and so forth. But I'm just grateful because people ask me all the time, how are you doing so well with what you're dealing with? My best friend is a therapist. So I have a cheat sheet. So I'm so grateful. But so Chana, first of all, tell us about your business, your company, and tell us what you do before we start bombarding you with questions. If y'all have questions, go ahead and put them in the comments as well.
Okay. So I am Chana Johnson. I am a licensed clinical professional counselor in Maryland. I am also the lead for the Maryland chapter of Star Legacy Foundation, which is an organization that focuses on education, advocacy, and support for families that have experienced a stillbirth. In therapy, I specialize in perinatal mood disorders, pregnancy, infant loss, stillbirth, miscarriage, and couples. I'm also a certified depression and mood disorder treatment professional and a yoga teacher, trauma sensitive yoga teacher as well. So that's sort of what I focus on. A lot of trauma-based things, and then also mood disorders like depression and anxiety.
Thank you. So, and we're gonna have you put your social media and all of that out there before we get off today. Your website, how people can contact you.
Yeah, that. I'm also the owner. Sorry, I forgot. Of Aspire Counseling and Wellness, where that's what we focus on, helping people to get from where they are to where they want to be.
Okay, thank you. So I found out, I guess it was about 10 years ago, that I had seasonal affective disorder. And, we don't like to claim that we have anything. I just noticed that I was struggling like every year when the days would get short, it would get cold. I love these memes that are out that talk about we are now officially in once I get in the house for the evening, I'm not coming back out
No,
season.
that's right.
I love it. But I mean, it's real. So this heaviness, this sluggishness, the sleepiness, the grouchiness that comes with these shorter days, dark days, cold days, what exactly is it?
So, for starters, seasonal affective disorder is technically a type of depression, so right? So like a subset. Um, and it usually begins around the same time every year, in September, between the end of September and middle of October. And then, you start feeling down. Your energy is sapped, your mood is low or you're moody, you just don't feel well. A lot of times the what is causing that, or what is suspected to cause that, is the reduced amount of sunlight that we receive. So here in the United States, in North America, pretty much everyone in North America is vitamin D deficient. We get vitamin D. Our bodies make vitamin D from the sun. But there are really only 3 or 4 months of the year where the sun is close enough that our bodies make it productively. And most of us nowadays are not outside during those hours. So, for those of us who are brown, we would need to be outside between 11 and 2 p.m. every day with no sunscreen and not behind glass, because your body doesn't make, if you're sitting inside of a room with a sunny window, your body's not making vitamin D. You have to be literally exposed to sun. And there pretty much that only happens here in North America from like maybe the middle to the end of May through August. Other beyond that, the sun is just too far away for us to make adequate amounts of vitamin D. So most of us are already vitamin D deficient, and here comes fall with now it's dark at 4:30, and the nights are longer. There isn't enough opportunity for us to make the vitamin D that we need. And vitamin D is important because when your vitamin D levels are low, it triggers depressive symptoms. So for a lot of people, their seasonal affective disorder is directly related to the fact that the days are shorter and the nights are longer. There's less sun. We're already vitamin D deficient, and now the little bit we were getting is gone. So we feel, we don't feel well. We're tired. We don't have any energy. I think a lot of times we kind of not that we take for granted, but we don't realize the importance and the impact that the sun actually has on our ability, to function. Not that, like similar to plants, obviously we're not plants, but similar to plants, we perk up when it's sunny outside, and the opposite happens when it's not. And this time of year, it's dark. You wake up and it's dark, and before you get home from work, it's dark. Like it's dark. It's so much dark. And all of the daylight hours are the hours when you're indoors. So it's hard because it just feels very dark. And for a lot of people, that turns into sort of an internal darkness as well. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, so when we buy vitamin D supplements, we turn lights on in the house. I have one of those light therapy lights that I keep on. I try to make myself get outside and walk when the weather isn't too cold to get that sunlight. But like, what do we do?
So all of those things are, super important. I usually tell people, honestly, the first thing to start off doing is to go see your doctor and get your levels checked, to make sure that is even an issue. And honestly, for most people, it probably will be. But go see your doctor first. Get your vitamin D levels checked. Get your vitamin B levels checked. Get your magnesium checked, because a lot of those things, just can be helped by making sure that our vitamins and minerals are balanced. Again, the same fruits that grow in those sunny times of the year give us those nutrients. So when it starts getting dark, we're not eating a lot of those sunny fruits anymore. So those nutrients all drop, because that's where we were getting them from. So, I have to tell everybody, start off by seeing your doctor, find out what's going on inside. And then, beyond that, it's everything that you said. Make sure that you are getting some fresh air. Get outside. It's cold. Dress for the weather. There is a saying in, oh my gosh, I think it's, I can't remember if it's the Netherlands or somewhere on the other side of the world. And they say there's no such thing as bad weather. There's only bad clothing for the weather. Like they go, like their kids go outside every day, regardless of what the weather is, because they believe that you just dress for whatever the weather is. And I feel like a lot of times here, we don't do that. It's like, oh, it's too cold. We don't want to, we don't want to put on gloves, hat, long johns or whatever to go outside and go for a walk. But in a lot of other countries, they will absolutely do that, because they just dress for the weather. Like the weather is what the weather is, but your body needs what it needs. So they just dress appropriately for the weather, and they get out there and they do it. For all kinds of depression, one of the things there were three things that make the biggest, honestly, difference or can have a really huge impact are the simplest things that everybody knows. Make sure that you're eating well, make sure you're getting enough sleep, make sure you're getting some exercise. Those three things, honestly, it's like 80% of, impacts like 80% of how we feel. Even when we have depression, like clinical depression, 80% of how you feel. Are you eating properly? Are you sleeping? Are you getting some movement? It's like a balm. And the challenge, of course, is that with all kinds of depression, including seasonal affective disorder, it's the last thing we feel like doing because
Right.
it's dark and it's cold. So
Yep.
what I really want to do is just climb in this bed with these blankets and
Mhm.
stay here because where it's warm and I'm comfortable. So you have to, you kind of have to fight it. A lot of those symptoms, you do feel sluggish. You don't have as much energy. You probably are oversleeping or at least, laying in the bed more. Most of us gain weight in the wintertime. That doesn't help.
Yep.
Um, you know, it's just, it doesn't feel great.
Yeah.
So we tend to do the things that address our immediate need of how we feel, but that might run counter to what actually is going to help us in the long run.
Mhm. Mhm. So, how do we distinguish between a seasonal depression that will pass as the weather shifts and days get longer and all that, and maybe we really have some type of clinical depression?
So, for most people who have seasonal affective disorder, when it gets warm outside, when the weather breaks, when it starts getting sunnier, when we go through the whole, spring forward with our clocks, they tend to feel better. They start feeling better as that happens. Similar to, which I know you're going to mention later, but I'll stick it in here with the holiday blues.
Hmm.
Holiday blues, most people start once the new year begins, most people start feeling better. So the difference between like holiday blues and seasonal affective disorder is with seasonal affective disorder, January comes, February comes, and you still feel the same. Whereas with if holiday blues, you will have started feeling better by now. Seasonal affective disorder, you still feel, pretty sluggish, pretty just not yourself until the weather breaks and it starts getting sunny, and then you start feeling better. Clinical depression, you're not feeling better, and it doesn't really matter what is going on in terms of sunlight or anything else. The other thing to remember is that clinical depression, what makes it clinical is that it impacts or interferes with your ability to function. So some area of your life you are not functioning like you should be. And that might mean you are missing days from work. That might mean when you come home from work, you're in the bed and you can't interact with your children, you're not interacting with your partner, you're not, hanging out with friends, like it literally impacts how you're functioning. So you're not doing anything. Most people with seasonal affective disorder, like they want to stay inside, but they might take a phone call, they're watching TV, they might hang out with their friends, they just generally don't feel great. People
Hmm.
with clinical depression are usually not doing that. Now there are some people who, who are clinically depressed, who get up and go to work every day, come home, cook dinner for their kids, like they're doing all the things. But those feelings just don't go away. And usually people know when something's wrong. Like they know when they don't feel like themselves.
So, let me ask this before we go back to the holiday depression. How do we distinguish between, or is this something a therapist has to do? Whether, like, if you're finding that you get home from work and you're just in the bed, not interacting, how do you know it's not just you're stressed out
Hmm.
or you're really, really depressed? Because I notice, like, if I get extremely stressed, that'll shut me down.
Mm-hmm. Um, my first question would be, how do you get out of that?
Okay, so if a nap is refreshing and gives you the energy to get up and get some things done, even if you kind of still feel blah, then maybe it was just stress.
Yeah, that would be accurate. So when we're talking about like clinical depression, there's a list of symptoms that people experience. There's a minimum amount you must have. It has to have occurred during the same 2 week period and last for most of the day within that 2 week period.
Uh,
So
uh,
um, at least one of them has to be either a depressed mood or a loss of interest or a loss of pleasure in things you used to enjoy. So one of those two things has to be one of the five. Other than that, there are things like uh, a significant decrease or increase in appetite. Some people are like, I'm not hungry, and they're not eating. Some
mhm,
people are eating more than they should be. It is important to point out that it's also um, sometimes it goes back and forth. So sometimes people will, like I'll talk to a client and I'm like, okay, well, what are you eating? And they're like, they're telling me everything that they ate. And they're like, yeah, I ate, like maybe they had pretty normal stuff today. And I'm like, okay, what did you eat yesterday? Nothing. What did you eat the day before that? Nothing. What did you, you know what I mean? So it's not
mhm,
necessarily like this is what every day looks like. We're
mhm,
looking at, let's look at the last 2 weeks and what has this last 2 weeks looked like. Obviously, in some people, it's lasted longer than 2 weeks. But we start looking at clinical depression when all of these things have been going on for 80% or more of the time for like 2 weeks. There's usually people usually have trouble concentrating or trouble making up their mind. They usually are very fatigued or have, just feel drained, almost like you've been unplugged. Um, they may or may not have thoughts of harming themselves. That's not always strictly necessary.
mhm.
Typically feel pretty hopeless, worthless. Hopelessness and worthlessness are another two, kind of like, okay, maybe we need to shift our thinking to depression here. Because people who have seasonal affective disorder don't usually feel worthless. That's
Mhm.
different.
Uh,
And then sometimes there is significant weight loss or weight gain, even though they're
mhm,
not trying to. And again, if you aren't eating, you're going to lose weight. Or if you're overeating, you're going to lose weight. And for some people, they're like, well, no, I'm eating my meals pretty normally. But they're like eating a lot of junk food, which they don't normally, when that's not normally, their MO. They
mhm.
suddenly start eating a lot of things that they would never normally eat. So all of those things um, can be markers, but it's really about how long have you been feeling this way and to what extent. Is it like, I'm really stressed out and I've been laying in bed all day? That's not actually depression. But if
Mhm.
it's like, I'm really stressed out, I come home from work, I get in the bed and I stay in the bed, for the rest of the evening, and it's been like that for the last 3 weeks, that's a different story.
So, do you find that a lot of people don't like monitor themselves, don't pay attention to how they're feeling, how they're doing until something big happens and like brings them into a major like depressive episode or something? I notice like as I work through my grief, and we'll talk about that in a minute though, but I do a lot of self monitoring now that I didn't do before. It,
Definitely.
and so is that something we should just be doing regularly anyway, assessing where we are before we slide into some kind of depression or stress overload?
100%. So one of the things that I think that we need to start teaching people from the time that they are young is how to be more mindful about how they're feeling. Historically, we tend to have been put in positions where we kind of had to ignore, and I'm going to jump on my soapbox and I promise I'll be right back off. For people who are, people of color or people who are marginalized, whatever that looks like. And in particular, I'm speaking about people of color here.
Mm-hmm.
So, one of the challenges that we have living in these wonderful United States is that, like microaggressions and racism are a part of our experience. They just
Right.
are. One of the challenges that I see with that is that we are consistently put in situations where we have to like internally we acknowledge what is happening while at the simultaneously pretending like it's not happening. And
Right.
that's what we have to do repeatedly just to get through, to make it through the school day, to make it through work, to not get fired, like whatever it is. We're confronted, we know what's happening, but we have to pretend like it's not. And we get in
Mm-hmm.
this loop of ignoring how we feel or knowing we feel a way, but not behaving in a way that makes sense with how we feel. And the
Mm-hmm.
longer you do that, the harder it becomes to really know how you're feeling because it's almost like you're constantly dulling your own feelings just
Mm-hmm.
so that you can have whatever lived experience. And
Yeah.
so what I find is that there are a lot of people who don't, like practicing mindfulness is really important because we're not accustomed to doing that. Not to mention the fact that a lot of us, right or wrong, come from families where exploring feelings, talking about feelings, having feelings is not really, that's not really what we do, particularly those of us
Mm-hmm.
older parents. That is
Right.
not what we were raised to do. That is not what we do. It's not really
Right.
matter how you feel. You just get
Right.
on with it. And
Yep.
when you're raised that way, your internal, like little kids know, like they have a much better way, much better handle
Mm-hmm.
on knowing when they don't feel right and when they when they're really little, when something is off, they cry immediately. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter what it is because that's the only way they have to communicate, right? But if they're hungry, if they're tired, if they're cold, whatever it is, something's wrong, you get a reaction. The older
Right.
we get, the more we stop doing that.
Because
So
we're
we have
conditioned
to
to hold it in.
retrain
Yeah.
we have to
Mm-hmm.
retrain ourselves to recognize, okay, like right now I actually feel pretty good. Like nothing's hurting. I'm not upset. I'm not anxious. Let me focus in on what this feels like so that when it starts to shift, I'll recognize it because we don't recognize the shift. And I see this a lot in relationships too, where people are like, I don't know what happened. We were
Oh,
talking and then all of a sudden somebody just, kirks out. And the person who kirks out is like, I don't know. And they don't know
yeah.
because they're not feeling, the water is getting hotter and hotter. They can't feel that. They don't know until it boils over that they were feeling anything at all. So we have to relearn how to do that. And we
Yeah.
do that by practicing mindfulness. Those times of the day when nothing is going on, nothing is going wrong, nothing is bad, sitting and focusing on ourselves. How do I feel right now? Like moving your wrists, moving your hands, moving your ankles. Is anything hurt? Is anything tight? What's going on? And if you feel something off, like, my neck feels like my shoulders feel really, really tight right now. Okay. What happened in the last 30 minutes? What happened in the last hour? Think it through. Like, oh, okay, I had a meeting with my boss and I really didn't like her attitude. So I must be a little stressed, or I must be anxious, or maybe I'm angry. Whatever that is, so that you can start associating what it feels like in your body when something
Mm-hmm.
changes. And then when these bigger things come, you'll know like something is off and I don't know what it is, but something is off, and you'll be able to catch it a lot sooner. The other thing to point out here, in particular for men, is that depression usually presents as anger. It is not usually sadness, it's usually anger. So
Wow.
if you're mad, if you're a man and you're annoyed all the time, or you have really short fuse, or you're angry, just be aware you might actually be depressed. And I think the reason for that is, again, jumping back onto my soapbox, because societally, men are
Yeah.
not allowed to express, like anger is an
Right.
acceptable emotion for men to express. Sadness,
Right.
frustration, confusion, disappointment, not so much.
Right.
So everything gets channeled into anger.
Wow. Wow. That is powerful. Everything they're feeling gets channeled into the one emotion that's acceptable for them to express.
Yeah. So, like,
Oh,
when I work with male clients, we spend a lot of time unpacking that. Well, and again, it goes back to mindfulness. Where are you feeling whatever you're feeling? Like, if you're feeling something in the pit of your stomach, that's usually where fear comes from. What are
mm-hmm.
you afraid of? I'm afraid I'm going to lose my job. Okay, so um, you're angry about whatever happened at work, and you're afraid you're going to lose your job. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're really afraid you're going to lose your job. And that's why you came home and started yelling at your wife. It's
Uh,
because you're afraid that you're going to lose your job. You're not really angry about what happened. You're scared. But
and don't we store this stuff in our bodies as well, like our physical
yeah,
ailments and aches and pains, and like you just said, the feeling in your gut.
yeah,
We store that stuff in our bodies when we
yes,
aren't mindful of it and feel we can't express it.
exactly. And this is another reason why some type of regular physical activity is important. Because, like, for example, women in particular tend to store stress and anxiety in their hips. Like, in, your
Oh,
hip, yeah, your hips and your, like your psoas, that front muscle, hip flexors, all of this right in here in the middle.
wait a minute, does that have to do with the fupa too?
Not exactly.
Oh,
But that would
okay.
make that, I can
I
understand
was
why
gonna
that might
say,
contribute to the stress.
if
But
I can get the stress down, then I
right.
can get rid of the fupa. Okay, go
So
ahead.
like, but so even if I'm not actually sure what is causing me anxiety or stress, if I have a regular exercise practice where I am stretching my hip flexors, where I'm, moving my hips, giving them their full range of motion, that will help to relieve the stress even if I don't know what it is. So you don't. It's not like I can only reduce my stress if I can identify every single thing that's stressing me out. That's not true because it is stored in your body. So if you do the things that help your body move stress, you can help to reduce your stress levels, even if you're not sure of every single thing that's stressing you out. Which is why some type of physical movement is so important.
So when we walk, when we're doing our yoga, we are releasing stress out of literally out of the cells of our body, even if we didn't even know it was there.
Yes,
Wow.
100%. It's important.
Wow.
It's really important.
Okay, so somebody asked about journaling, the role of journaling in working out these emotions, helping us discover where we are.
Absolutely. So journaling is fantastic because it gives you a record of what is happening and what has happened. It makes it so much easier to pick out patterns. Because once you figure out what the pattern is, then you can start to figure out how to fix it. It's really difficult if it's like, you kind of feel crappy and it's all over the place. But if you can figure out that, every Wednesday I, get nauseous and I feel horrible and I have a headache, and that just happens to be like the same day that I have a client that's the same day that her mother-in-law calls to talk to the kids. Okay, well, maybe it's associated with the phone calls with your mother-in-law,
Mm-hmm.
because it just happens to fall on the same day. And the days that doesn't happen, you don't feel like that. But it can be hard to identify that when you're not keeping track. The other thing about journaling is that sometimes just the act of putting it on paper is a
Mm-hmm.
release, and that
Yeah.
helps people to feel it in themselves less.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, because I notice when I journal, I don't feel the need so much to have to call somebody and talk about it. I feel like I got it out.
yes, that's it exactly. And
Mm-hmm.
the thing is, there are a lot of people who are like, I have a lot of clients who are like, oh, I don't really like to write, I don't like to journal. So one, journaling is super effective. So if you're going to try it, it helps. Honestly, it helps if you get a really nice book. Like, you're more likely to write in something that's pretty than you are in something, or like a nice leather journal if you're a man, maybe not into the
Mm-hmm.
pretty stuff, I don't know. But like, something that makes you want to write in it. You don't have to do it every day. You can do it once a week. It's really just about getting it out. And then for some of my clients, they're like, I really don't, they don't like writing. Use the voice recorder on your phone. You can
Yeah.
talk a journal entry. It doesn't have to be written.
Yeah.
And then or alternatively, I have some clients who do what's called a color journal. There are no words involved. You're literally
Mm.
scribbling in the colors that you feel. So if you had a day at work where you were really, really angry and then you got really sad? Like maybe you had a really bad experience with a bad review or something, and you were really, really mad, and then you got into an argument with your supervisor, and then now you're worried about losing your job, and you're really, really sad about that. You might just scribble, like red, whatever anger means for you. So maybe that's like your, red, and then that shifts into purple, which is what you associate with fear, and then blue, which makes you sad. The interesting thing is when I talk to these clients a week later, they can tell me what happened. Just looking at the cup, like they remember, just based on the colors that they scribbled, they know whatever that crazy scribbly is, they know what happened. So it doesn't even
And
have to be words.
that's used a lot with children too, isn't it? The
Yes,
color.
because it's
Mm-hmm.
really difficult for children to put a lot of those things into words. Children, um, it's hard for kids because children are born experiencing the full range of emotions. They just don't have words to describe them. That's our job, to teach them that, how to identify what they're feeling. But all kids don't have that, and all kids don't have it to the same extent. But helping them get their feelings out when they can't put it into words, colors are a good way to do that.
So now let's talk about specifically what is it about the holidays that brings about this sadness?
So, a couple of things. For a lot of people, so I guess I could put it in three major categories. Um, it's either reminiscing on, you know, pleasant past holiday experiences that will never be the same,
Mm-hmm.
reminiscing on horrible past holiday experiences, and that's, what you're ruminating on, or the absence of someone who used to make holidays special. So in the first case, maybe you had holiday traditions when you were growing up, those traditions no longer hold true, or like maybe now all your siblings, or they all live around the whole United States, and you guys rarely get a chance to get back together, all together. So Christmas time comes and it's just not the same.
Okay.
That sort of wistfulness and missing how things used to be can make people sad. Like, we used to have the best times together. We used to do this together. We used to do that together. And now, we're Zoom calling instead, can make
Mm-hmm.
people sad because they
Yeah.
miss, the experiences that they used to have.
Okay.
Um, Sometimes people have really horrible memories of childhood. So, maybe they just did not come, from a really good environment. Maybe it was very chaotic or very violent or something like that. So, like there was this one horrible Christmas where XYZ happened. And so when Christmas comes around, it reminds you of that horrible time when something terrible happened. It just doesn't feel really good.
Mm-hmm.
And either of those can send people, make people feel bad, particularly when, like in the first case, you're out and about and you see families together and your family can't be together. And now you feel bad because other people's families can be together and you can't. Or people have these wonderful holiday traditions, like I, have conversations with people, maybe their spouse's family is really, really close and they're all really lovey-dovey. And they love going to the spouse's holidays things, but at the same time, it reminds them of how dysfunctional their own family is and makes them feel really sad.
Okay.
So, sometimes we see that. And then also, as time goes on, for one reason or another, people who we love are no longer with us. And a lot of times that happens when people die. Older people, or, in our cases, younger people die and they're no longer here. And so, we have these holidays and it illuminates the fact that someone is missing. I see this a lot with Thanksgiving because one of the things that I see that people do a lot, and it works for some people, but it doesn't work for a lot of people. So I'm not suggesting it should be one way or the other. I'm just putting it out there. Thanksgiving, we have foods all over the table. We all sit down around the table. Everybody kind of has their seats, and then someone dies. And then the next Thanksgiving, we're not going to let this get us down. We're still going to meet as a family. And they all have their standard Thanksgiving dinner. We all go to the same house we usually go to. We all take the exact same seats. And it feels horrible because
Yeah.
everything being exactly the same highlights the missing person.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we suggest in those kind of situations is change up that tradition. You don't have to just not do it at all, if you want to do it, but don't necessarily do it in the same way. So maybe before all the food was on the table and you guys passed around plates, and this year you do it buffet style where all the food is over here. We all get our plate and then we come and sit down wherever we want. Or maybe we have it in a different room, or maybe we do it at a different house, or something that makes it similar enough that it feels like a good fit, but different enough that it doesn't trigger that, kind of highlight the empty chair, because
Mm-hmm.
that makes people feel bad. It's also okay, and I'll put it out there,
Mm-hmm.
to skip a holiday. You don't have to feel like, well, it's Thanksgiving and all the family's going to want me to be there. Of course they do, but that doesn't mean you have to come. If you feel like
Mm.
it's too much for you or this is not going to be good for me, it is okay to say, you know what, I'm going to sit this one out, because Thanksgiving is coming back next year. And maybe next year you'll feel like participating. Like missing
Uh-huh.
one is not going to ruin it. It's not. People, a lot of, obviously your family or whomever does, they don't want you to be sad, they don't want you to feel bad, and we get that. But
Mm-hmm.
it is important that each of us know what we need, and sometimes what we need is to not have to, particularly when losses are fresh, we
Mm-hmm.
need to not have to be on in front of a group of people in a way, like, you know what I mean, like in a way that highlights what we are, like, that's not fair to yourself, to be like, okay, well, let me go put this brave face on, and
Mm-hmm.
like I'm not feeling it, but I'm gonna pretend like everything is okay. And then all
Right.
night long, people are gonna ask you, how are you really doing? Like, no, no, just don't.
Yeah.
It's okay. Thanksgiving will be back next year. Have somebody bring you a plate, whatever. Call while everybody is there to say hello, make it 4 minutes, hang up the phone, whatever you need to do. But I think a lot of times people feel pressured to show up in the same ways that they showed up before,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you
We
don't
feel
have
pressured.
to. You don't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it does. It feels like a lot of pressure. You don't have to do that. It's perfectly healthy to say, you know what, this year, that's not what I need. And I'm going to do something different.
Oh, that's a great line. This year, that's not what I need. I'm going to do something different.
Yeah.
And it's okay to see, we have to realize that it's okay to say that,
Mm-hmm.
because
And I
we're so
think,
worried about pleasing the family and pleasing everybody and showing everybody how strong we are and this, that, and the other. Some days we just need to say, I'm going to do something different.
mm-hmm, definitely. And I
Wow.
mean, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not putting up
Uh-huh.
a tree. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm not putting a tree up this year either, although like I wasn't sure I was going to do it anyway. But I was like, I'm feeling pressure. I'm feeling pressure. And I'm like, why? It's my house. I don't have to put a tree. It's my house. I
exactly.
can put
It's
up
your
a tree
house.
or not put up a tree. I'm not going to jail for not putting a tree up. So no, I'm not putting a tree up this
Exactly.
year.
Because here's the
Yeah.
thing, like, you have to, like you still have to function on Friday, right? Like Thanksgiving is on Thursday. You have to
Yeah.
wake up Friday and function. And you
Yeah.
don't, whatever gains you've made, you don't want to spend the next week trying to recover from
These
Thursday.
comments are killing me.
Yeah, like you
That's
don't
our
you
brother in California, y'all. That's our brother.
you don't
Go.
want to spend the next week feeling like, oh, I wish I hadn't come, and then this one said this and that was so hard. Like, don't do that to yourself. Because, as well meaning as people are, the only person who has to carry that cross
Is
24/7
is you.
is you.
Mhm. Yep.
So you have to do what you have to
Mhm.
do to make that bearable. And if that means that you skip it this year, then you skip it. And it honestly is helpful for us, like some amount, when you've gone through something and there are people in your life who don't quite get it.
Mhm.
Part of our job, not directly but indirectly, is to teach them that things are gonna be different now. Like like your family members getting accustomed with you setting a boundary, that's good for them.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know it's good for them. It's not going to feel good for them. They're going to give you
Mm-hmm.
pushback. But it is actually good for them. It's a lesson they need to learn. And sometimes it's our responsibility to teach them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we do that by just, I don't have to give you any explanations because I'm also really big on, helping adults realize that you don't owe anyone an explanation. You do not.
Oh.
It is enough to say, and this goes for your parents too, grown-ups out there who have parents who feel like you have to do whatever, particularly when it comes to holidays. No, you do not. You do not owe them an explanation. Once you reach adulthood, anybody who gets an explanation
I love it.
gets it because you choose to give it, not because you are obligated to do so. And so if you just like, actually, I'm not really feeling it today. Well, why not? Well, I don't know. I just don't understand. Well, why can't you tell me? And the reason is because they are fishing for
Mm-hmm.
your explanations so they can find a way around it. They
Mm-hmm.
want to validate or invalidate what you're feeling to get you to do what they want you to do. No, no. So that's why I'm like, oh, just don't give them one. Just say no. I don't want to do that. Like,
I
no.
love it. I
No,
love it.
you don't owe anybody explanation. And anybody you give one to, like, that's a choice that you can make, and honestly, a privilege for them to receive it. You don't owe anybody.
I'm privileged for them to receive it. I love it. But you know what? You're absolutely right. And we think that it's mean, but even if we look at the Bible, Jesus didn't have a problem telling people no. He didn't have a problem taking his time getting to where he was going to go, or telling people that's not on my agenda for today. He even told his family, they wanted him to come out, and he was in there minister, and he said, well, who is my family? you know he didn't have a problem establishing boundaries, but we seem to think that we have to let people tell us what to do and what not to do, and we don't. So I mean, you just liberate a whole bunch of people.
uh, I'm trying not to get back on my soapbox here. So
Go ahead.
I think a lot of that comes from our very well-meaning families, because when we are little, we are often taught that we are not allowed to have boundaries. And we do this to children in ways that we like. I don't think they actively realize what they were doing. But like, for example, Thanksgiving comes, here little kids, everybody's excited to see the kids. Oh, come give Aunt Sally a hug. He doesn't want to give Aunt Sally a hug. We force him to give Aunt Sally a hug. We have just violated all of his natural boundary. His natural sense of, my physical body does not want to do that. This doesn't feel good. I don't like it. We just blast it right through it. And when we do that repeatedly, we teach them what you feel doesn't really matter.
Wow.
What matters is what I want you to do, not what you want to do. And for sure, there are going to be times with our children when we don't, like when you just have to do what I tell you to do. Absolutely. Like, you're just going to do when I say, go do X, Y, Z, I expect you to go do X, Y, Z. When I tell my children to go clean up your room, I expect you to go clean up your room. The difference between, like, when my parents said it to me and when I say it to my kids is that when I was young, I might have been like, like annoyed. And then I immediately would have gotten yelled at or punished or fussed at for having feelings about it, because we weren't allowed to have feelings about it.
Right.
It was like, you're just supposed to be happy and go do, but like, grown-ups aren't happy about doing the stuff they don't want to do. So that's normal. The difference is with my kids, I'm like, oh, you don't have to like it. You just have to do it.
Yeah.
Go do it. Like, because it's okay for you to not be happy about it. It's okay for you to have feelings about it. But that doesn't mean that you can get out of doing the things that you're supposed to do. And so working with people when they're young, when you grow up like that, you become grown-ups who are accustomed to ignoring how you feel. Relationships, ignoring all the red flags because we spend a lifetime ignoring, like, when I was 6 and I had this, internal feeling that I did not want to hug Uncle Johnny. Something was wrong here and it was icky. Everyone in my space forced me to ignore that to go and hug up on Uncle Johnny.
Mm-hmm.
So now that you are 20, 25, 30, and you come across this dude and they're like what people on the outside would see as red flags, why in the world would you recognize that? When you've been taught to ignore them your whole life, why would you recognize that?
So you know what? This is so helpful. I like when I turned 50, I felt like I had crossed over into this great awakening of, my sense of boundaries, my sense of who I am and what I do and don't have to take. And now I'm wondering if there was some magic veil that lifted at 50, or did I just decide I was like done with being who people wanted me to be?
I think it's that one.
Yeah, now
I
I'm
think you
thinking
reached
that
you
that's,
reached an age or a stage where you
yeah,
felt like, actually, I'm done with that.
I'm done with that. Yes. Oh,
And I
this is
think
so
that younger
liberating.
people are figuring it out younger now.
You're
Like, I'm
figuring out
excited because
your
I, talk to
uh-huh.
these people in their 20s and 30s, and they're like, nope, I'm not. And it's fantastic because most of us didn't get this. We didn't even start learning this stuff until we were in our 40s. Like,
Yes.
and
I
they're
just saw
getting
one of our
younger.
little sisters on here. I was talking to her the other day. She's like 35. And I was telling her, no, you don't have to do that. No, you don't have to deal with that. And she was like, oh, good. Thank you. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to tell you now what I wish I had known when I was your age. You don't have to deal with that. You
Yeah,
don't have to do that.
you,
Yeah.
yep, you don't. Even, like, even with my soon to be 16-year-old, we've had conversations in the last couple of years, like, you don't have to hang out with them if you don't like if this person calls you and wants to hang out and you don't want to, you don't have to do that. You can say no. You don't have to be friends with this person if that doesn't feel like a good fit for you. You can say no. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's okay. If you are at this place, you are, go to this school party or hanging out with your friends or whatever, and it starts feeling weird and you want to leave, it's okay to leave. Like,
Yeah.
you don't
Yeah.
have to do that.
It's that what is the acronym? FOMO, fear of
Yeah,
missing out. Like we always feel like we're missing out on something if we don't do it, but it's like I didn't want to do it anyway.
exactly.
So why do I feel like I'm
You're
gonna
missing
miss
out on
something?
something. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's really that we're afraid of disappointing people, and we'll do it to the point of our own detriment. And at
Mm-hmm.
some point, we've got to say, my self preservation has to be my priority because. And it's another thing. It took me too long to realize it's my responsibility to take care of myself. It's not anybody else's
Yep.
responsibility. Self-care is a must, and it is a personal responsibility. And if I have to tell somebody I can't do something or can't be somewhere because, well, and I know my because I don't have to tell them why not. But if I know that I have a yoga class scheduled at a certain time, I'm not gonna miss my class to go do something for them because now you just said, the yoga's doing more for me than I thought it was. I'm thinking, oh, I need to exercise. It helps me clear my mind and just slow down. But now I'm seeing I'm literally releasing stress cells, stress out of the cells in my body. It's imperative. And I think we as a people, we just don't give ourselves permission to take care of ourselves. And that is such a powerful lesson from all of this today. Because like even I don't know if this is true. Somebody said like depression is anger turned inward.
Hmm. I can see.
And I mean, it's part of our anger that we've let people run our lives and tell us what to do and what we need to do and set expectations that were unfair and didn't allow ourselves to speak. We weren't even speaking within ourselves to see what it was we wanted and didn't want and what we needed. This whole what do I need in this
Yeah.
moment? That is so powerful. And I think for people, and well, I'm saying I'm in my year first. Everybody knows this is my first holiday, but I've talked to people who like 34 years out from a loved one dying, and they still dread the holidays. Like it's like, so, they still have to sit back and give themselves permission to experience the holiday however they need to experience it, even if that means, it never goes back to whatever they did before.
Yeah.
Um, at some point, we have to put our foot down and and go with God for ourselves about our own lives. And we tell other people to do it all the time. But I hope the saints who are listening tonight are receiving this um for themselves. And these comments, some of them are just hilarious, but like people are really getting into like this self-care.
Yeah.
So like here's Donna. She said she's doing acupuncture. And I think a lot of these helpful wellness practices, we've let like these new age religions and stuff hijack stuff that God gave us
Mm-hmm.
and turn it into something else, so that we're not benefiting from the things that we could be doing for ourselves.
Yeah. I one of the best statements, I have no idea where it came from, that I came across recently is sometimes you have to be the villain in someone else's story to be the hero in yours.
In your own,
And
yeah.
it's the truth. Like, we have these conversations, and I talk to people and I'm like, okay, when you're talking about disappointing someone else or upsetting someone else, are they going to be hurt or are they going to be injured? Because they're not the same thing. Hurt means you don't like it, but you're actually going to be fine. Like you're going to be fine. Maybe your feelings get hurt. Maybe you are disappointed. It's not the end of the world. Like, if I actually injure you, that's different. And in most cases, yeah, people are going to be hurt. They're going to be hurt that you didn't show up. They're going to be disappointed. They're not going to like it. But one of the jobs of adulthood is learning how to handle big feelings. And disappointment and frustration are big feelings. Exactly. You'll be fine. They'll be fine.
Yeah.
Because if there was a significant reason, like for example, God forbid there was some kind of accident and we're going to be in the hospital on Thanksgiving Day, they're not canceling dinner for you. Like some people might come and visit you, but you know what I mean? Like they would figure out how to get all the things done if you couldn't be there.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that they actually have the skills required to get over it.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's a muscle that they need to exercise. Like maybe because
I love it.
There's so many grown-ups who just cannot handle big feelings. They don't like discomfort, just unpleasant feeling. They just want to avoid them like the plague. And it's like, that is not biblical. Like it, good and bad, we accept both. You know what I mean? Like we don't get to just choose one and not the other. We have to take both. And that means we have to learn how to manage those big uncomfortable feelings and know that we're not going to stay there. Like it's not forever. It's just nobody, they'll be fine. They'll be fine.
Oh, this is good. We are stressing ourselves out trying to deal with adults who can't handle big feelings.
Yep.
Oh, that is so good.
They're like 6-foot toddlers. Seriously. Like 5 and 6 foot toddlers.
Yes.
Exactly. They're operating out of fear and people pleasing.
This was so good. So we're out of time. Y'all, I thank y'all for listening in. We could go on and on, but we are going to get back to our cooking. But I wanted to have this dialogue tonight because we're entering into the holiday season. I have one more question. I didn't see any others. I didn't see any others in the chat. Let me see. Did y'all have any others? Oh, somebody said we need a part 2. All right, so we're gonna have to bring. Now, why am I sideways? We're gonna have to bring Chana back on before. I gotta figure out why I'm sideways. Oh yeah, we got a few requests for part 2s. Um, but so while I'm figuring out how I turned sideways,
Oh,
can you Nazelle gonna type it to me to tell me how to fix it. Can you tell us, because I did want to ask a specific question about the grief. Um, so if switching up something that we do is a helpful remedy. This is Chana's website. If switching up what we do is a helpful way um to handle the holiday, how do we change up what we do but yet still find a way to honor and include our loved one in our moving forward?
so um, so there are a couple ways to do that. You can, if you think about the ways that that person was involved before, um, you might create, so some things you do might incorporate things that that person would have done, and some things are just going to be like completely new. For example, if there was something that, you know, was your loved one's favorite food, but you don't usually eat it at Thanksgiving, make it and put it on the table and include it as part of your Thanksgiving dinner. Um, you could, a lot of times after we eat dinner on Thanksgiving, like my family, we usually end up playing games. So maybe we play that loved one's favorite game. Or maybe we play their favorite songs during dinner. Maybe there's a, certain artists that they like and we play their music. Or, a moment of silence or lighting a candle for that person and including it as a part of the evening. Um, Perhaps everybody goes around the table and shares their favorite memory of that person. Or, um, just making, like, figuring out ways to include whoever they are, or whoever they were. Like in my case, my daughter was stillborn, so we didn't get to know her, even though she was full term, but we didn't get to know her. But every year we do a holiday ornament, with the family, and every year there are 7 of us on the ornament, even though she's not here. And it's like, every year we get a new one and we include her because it's like one of the few ways that we're able to do that. So, when you think about what that looks like, how can you incorporate the person that you lost, but in a new way that doesn't highlight their absence? Because you want to honor them. Like, you don't want to pretend like they just weren't ever here.
Right.
Also don't want to necessarily trigger everybody either. So how can you, think of ways that you can incorporate, and also know that particularly for this first year and even the second, honestly, I'll say honestly, probably definitely the first 3. And, to some degree, the ones after that too, because, you never forget. It's not like you're never going to forget. You always carry some of that with you. But know that it's entirely possible and likely that you will be triggered. Like, whatever you choose to do, there probably is gonna be at least one moment that feels really difficult. And so, like, knowing that that is likely to happen,
and that's okay.
and that is okay. That is okay. That is normal, and prepare for it. So that means that if plan A is we are, gonna sit down and have dinner and everybody's gonna go around and say one thing about that person that they liked or that they miss, if I start feeling bad after that happens, then, I will, I can go home, or, like give yourself permission to take care of yourself if you end up feeling triggered. If this happens and I feel bad, I'm giving myself permission to leave. I'm giving myself permission to go into another room. I'm going to give myself permission to go call a friend. I'm giving myself permission to go listen to music, whatever it is, but have a backup plan. And, or maybe you show up. Maybe you're like, okay, I'm going to go. You show up. It doesn't feel right. You shift to your plan B. Plan B is I have movies set up at home, my favorite movies set up at home and some popcorn, and I'm going to watch that instead. Give yourself an out, because you don't have, I think a lot of times people feel like once they go forward, they got to stay there, and you don't. You
Yeah.
can give yourself an out. You can say, I really don't want to go to Thanksgiving dinner this year because my grandma's not going to be there and I know it's going to be hard, but I also want to show up. So I'm going to go and I'm going to stay for 30 minutes and I'm going to leave. You don't
And
have to
you
stay
might
the
get
whole
there and
time.
and be surprised that,
Yeah,
yeah, that you might want to stay. Yeah.
exactly.
Uh-huh.
But
Yeah.
by giving yourself permission to leave after 30 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
if you can only stay 30 minutes, it doesn't feel like a failure.
Yes.
If you stay longer, great. That's fine. Stay longer.
Mm-hmm.
But limit the time so that if you exceed it, it feels like a win, not like, dag, I was planning to go into dinner and then I could only stay 2 hours and I had to leave. And then you feel like a failure. Just give it a very short window and give yourself permission to leave if you need to.
That's great. This has been so helpful. Y'all get in the chat and type thank you, Chana. Thank you, Chana. And her website is right there, www.aspirecanhelp.com. And her
I think
the
that's the name
social
of
media.
all social media. Yeah, I think
Okay.
all of them.
Social media is at Chana Johnson Counseling. So you can reach out. And she is taking appointments. So actually I gotta refer somebody to you when we get off of here, Chana. Tonight. Um, so here the thank yous coming in. Good to see you, Sister Monique, Elder Charles, our sister Inez, Pastor Michelle, Minister Calais, Elder Nazel. All right, I think Donna's gonna reach out to you. Sister Rena. Yep, Donna's gonna reach out to you.
Yeah, I am happy to help.
Okay, wonderful. If y'all would like to sew tonight, I'm going to put MBBC giving up for you. And we will be back online for our Thanksgiving Day service tomorrow at 10 a.m. Again, we will not be live on campus. We will be online only. So join us from wherever you are. If you're cooking, if you're watching Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, or even if you're working tomorrow, just jump on with us at 10 and put a shout out in the chat. I'll be preaching from the tag, I'm grateful for it all. I'm grateful for it all. And then we'll see you Sunday morning online right here, the MBBC Baltimore at 9 a.m. And on campus at noon. And then we are in the last month of the year, y'all. Last month of the year. We are almost there. We are keeping all of our sick, shut in, and bereaved persons in our thoughts, calls, and prayers. Don't hurt yourselves too bad at the table tomorrow. Pace yourselves, take a nap, and then come back and go at it again. Remember, you still have to fit in your jeans after Thanksgiving. And don't hurt yourself too bad with this Black Friday shopping. If you are shopping Friday, please buy black. It's Black Friday. Please buy black as much as you can. Support our Black business owners, and you can get right online and see who the local ones are wherever you are. You can see, and you can order right online, so you don't have to go into their stores. But let's support our Black business owners. Make sure you reach out to Chana if you need to make an appointment, or if you need more information. She is available, and we are grateful for this time. So that's all for tonight, folks. We'll schedule a part 2 so we can bring her back and take some more of your questions. We love you all. Enjoy your Thanksgiving and have an incredible remainder of your evening. Good night. We love
Good night.
you.